Let's go back to the very beginning. Tell me about your childhood.
Okay, I was born in Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay.
Grew up there, ended up moving over to the Kansas side. So if you don't know Kansas City, it's like one big city divided into two states. So there's Kansas City, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri. It's ratchet on both sides, suburbs on both sides. It's a real big metropolis area.
But Kansas City, Kansas is a little more rural, right? Like
it depends on where you go. It really depends on where you. You can't really put it in one box because there's too many different types of neighborhoods there. So it's hard to say, but you could get into anything you want on either side, and that usually surprises people. So grew up in Kansas City, started rapping when I was 16, and decided like I was going to make a career out of it when I was 18, dropped out of high school, and then...
Do you have any prior musical exposure?
My mom and dad are both guitarists and banjo players and singers. So I saw them like singing music in the living room before they split up. So I was into the idea of music.
But did you kind of intentionally reject the type of music that they were into?
Yeah, probably. I don't know if it was necessarily intentional, but it was not something I gravitated towards. I just I would watch Public Enemy, Rakim, Eric B, KRS-One on MTV, and that's what I wanted to do. I love the sound of rap music, and that's always been the thing I was drawn to.
Were you conflicted about it from day one? Because obviously they were black and from more urban areas than you?
Nah, because like in Kansas City, there's a lot of black people, and I went to school with a lot of black people, so I was exposed to the culture early on.
Right.
So it was like... my friends, that's what they were listening to. So it wasn't like a thing where I was like, oh, my parents make this type of music and like this type of music. It was really more about what I liked and what my friends were listening to. So,
and looking back on that era of hip hop, though, does it stand out to you as like, I experienced something extremely exciting and important? Because now hip hop is quite formulaic, and there are artists that come out from time to time that are exciting and whatnot. But like that era of coming out and seeing NWA and Public Enemy just like completely reshaping the culture in real time. Like when we think back on that, like we all kind of experienced that to one degree or another. I'm like a little too young to like remember it 100% clearly, right. But like, you know, that time in hip hop is like very special. It
was incredibly special, and I think there's a lot of people that are still super attached to it to this day. Like people that are really into protecting the tradition and the culture of it, and things have evolved, and it's definitely different now, as you said. But I think that a lot of us at the time didn't realize how much of an impact that era was going to have on the rest of hip hop forever. Because there's still people now that refuse to accept any sound, any style of hip hop that doesn't sound like late 80s, early 90s.
How much of that is also like rooted in nostalgia and that being like, oh, this is the first time I like fingered a girl. This is the first time, you know what I mean? Like this song was playing in the background, Far Side passing me by. So now that's better than anything Chief Keef could ever do. Like,
well, I mean, it'd be like you had Lil Reese on the other day. It'd be like a kid that grew up and he was 16 years old listening to a Lil Reese record for the first time. A girl, like, it's just when you're that age and you're this emotionally raw, kind of immature kid, the music that you hear leaves a stamp on you. And a lot of people spend the rest of their lives trying to say that's the best music that's ever existed, but it's really, that's just the time in your life. That's when music hit you the hardest. We're in our 40s, you know, like shit. When's the last time you heard a song where you were like, and it like just ruptured you as a person?
The new X4 is crazy.
Is it? Okay.
But there's a lot of stuff that I go back to. This is a random one to mention, but the other day I listened to the Sublime self-titled album.
Great album.
It moved me to my core how solid that album is the whole way through, and it's just like I see it with such different eyes than when I was 13 listening to that shit for the first time. And another one I went back to the other day that I was like, this is just such a one-of-a-kind album that could never exist in this way ever again was Wu-Tang Forever.
Oh, yeah. God,
just the weirdest, like to think that they like had like a #1 album or whatever, or this huge smash album in such a unique form with so many guys in the group and stuff, and that then they came out with this crazy double album that just had so many different personalities interjected into it, and it's just like the weirdest thing that like you probably will never see anything with such eclectic energy ever again.
Sure. Yes. I feel like the closest that we've come would probably be, and I know that they don't like when people say this, but Odd Future just that
They
was
came to mind too.
Yeah, for sure.
because it's a big collective of a bunch of different personalities, and they have this kind of counterculture sound, and they came out and made that big of an impact. But it was the similar energy for sure.
And when you look at like all the sums of the parts, like from, you feel me, Sid with the internet, Frank Ocean, Tyler, like they've really made pretty much as much of a cultural impact on the overall landscape of music as any group.
Yeah, and all
Like,
solo too.
yeah,
So it's a
solo.
similar thing where they come together as a group and they were this one energy, and then each of them, to a varying degree, had their own solo careers too.
8-person hip hop group is not meant to last.
No,
It's a
definitely
horrible
not.
financial decision. Right?
Terrible.
That, and it's just like you're so unlikely to find a group of people that are going to be able to stick together. Even the duos, even like
Yeah, it's of course.
even like
you're right.
Migos over the years, you would just kind of look at them and be just like, wow, like they're gonna last forever because they're like the same dude.
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
so
exactly.
similar, and they come from the exact same background. They've been together
For
forever.
their family.
Yeah,
And their family.
related
Yeah,
to
that's
each
the
other.
other thing.
But speaking of 8-man groups, describe the climate of the underground scene, like when you first started coming up out there in KC and the Midwest in general?
Well, so a lot of people don't realize this, but like Tech Nine was big in Kansas City before he was big in the rest of the United States and the rest of the world.
100%.
So the underground scene was kind of non-existent. It would be something that we kind of had to build. But like with the emergence of the internet, not social media really, but the actual internet and like chat forums and stuff, we started learning
Hip Hop
about.
Infinity.
Yes.
Shouts to JC Graves.
Dude, even before that, there was like America Online had
Yeah.
like an underground hip hop forum, and that's where I learned about a lot of this shit. And it was like, then tech was also bubbling, and there were other artists in the area, but for the most part, there really wasn't much of a scene. So we, like me, there's artists named Approach, Archetype. I could go on. There's a list of people that came up, and we kind of built a scene there.
And then you wound up having other fools like around slightly after you, around the same time, like Ubiquitous and all that.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know,
So
wound up-
Ubiquitous is from Colorado, but like Cess Crew was a thing late 90s, early 2000s that they started bubbling as a group, and then Tech ended up putting them on like, I don't know, 2010, something like that, and they did their thing, but nasty rappers, like legitimately great.
Were you influenced more by like the mainstream stuff that you were listening to, or the more underground scene around you?
Both. I would definitely say both. I think that was one of the joys of being in the Midwest is we weren't really, you didn't have to be attached to any sort of sound or style, and so I've always been real open-minded to mainstream artists, underground artists. It really just depended on what it sounded like and if I liked it or not.
And would you say that you were gifted from early on? Did like it stand out to your peers that you were somebody who was better at rapping than most people?
Yeah, I think that I annoyed people at first because I used to freestyle and shit at house parties, and they'd be like, "Shut the fuck up." And then once I got better at it, then they would make me do it, and now they all show up to
Have
the
you
shows,
watched
too.
Mac lead those battles from back in the day?
I haven't seen a lot of it.
Okay, so like the best way I could describe this guy and his rapping style, it would be like if Dennis the Menace was the most disrespectful guy and had no fear, just getting in your face.
Prankster energy.
Super prankster, like roaster, like jovial, but at the same time, like will say some off the hook shit. Wasn't afraid to like, you know, go for the jugular,
Yeah, yeah.
like you know, like whatever. Didn't matter, anybody killer, whatever race you were, whatever like genetic proclivities or misfortune your facial features might have inherited is getting gotten to with Mac, and and then like little freestyle shit that he would do in the moment, which is super cool. I'll move on for this Glaze Fest in a second, but this dude like really influenced the out of me on the early Scribble tapes, and there's this one time this fool like was getting in his face, and he was getting close, tried to push me. He backed up. He smelled his girlfriend's puss.
Oh, the crowd went
like fucking the crowd went berserk.
No, that was
because it was like the perfectly placed punchline at the right time.
Yeah, that was the Scribble Jam days. So that was, you know, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, we would hear these stories of this rap festival Scribble Jam, and at the time, it was the most prestigious battle rap, graffiti, DJ, breakdancing event in, I guess, the entire world.
And where did it take place mostly?
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. Wow,
yeah.
okay.
So like Eminem was in it. He made it to the finals one year. There's been a bunch of people. Rhyme Fest was like
Juice,
Thesaurus, Immaculate, Iron Solomon,
No Can Do,
of course.
I mean, like Slug and Idea and all them are there, but you're Sage Francis. So
Brother Ali,
the entire underground scene, the entire backpack rap scene of the late 90s and early 2000s, like I would say 80% of it that wasn't from New York or LA was birthed at Scribble Jam.
Yeah.
And a lot of those fools even rose to prominence at Scribble Jam.
Yeah, no doubt. And it was like a thing where like every Muslim person has to make a pilgrimage to Mecca at some point. Like it's like every person that was into indie rap or underground rap at the time, you had to go to Scribble Jam. Like that's just a thing that you had to do. And there were like 5,000 people there every year.
What year/age did you first go?
I went when I was 20, so that would have been 2001.
You went to college?
No. I dropped out of high school to rap.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Were you experiencing any success with it, or
locally? Okay. I saw like it was one of those things where I'm like, if I could get in front of people, I could probably create a fan base. I kind of felt like I think this might work, so I went for it. And Scribble Jam. The whole point of that was I figured if I could get on stage in front of a bunch of people and trash rappers and make the crowd go crazy, that was like a way for people to learn about you and a way for a large audience to find out about you. And that's how I heard of Eminem. Like, so I heard this dude Eminem got put on, signed with Dre. He made waves at Scribble Jam, so I'm like, all right, well, I freestyle against people. Maybe if I go up there, I could do something similar. And it was just more about trying to get exposure. I was just like, I'm not going to sign with a record label. I want to do this all myself from Kansas City. I don't want to move to LA or New York. So I'm like, I need to think of something. So I just went to Scribble Jam and entered and won it. I was in the finals
He almost won the first year, 2001. He wound up losing in the finals to ADM.
Yeah.
But like the thing is, like Scribble Jam would always have a certain thing that was gonna make somebody win, like a style du jour. And there's like the early Scribble Jams, it was all about like style and flow. And Mac like ushered in like the punchline era. So like nobody was doing like punchlines like that really before. Idea a little bit, but it was kind of different. And he was really just straightforward. And so he almost won that first year, lost, and then the next year came back, you feel me, and wound up winning the whole thing. But first of all, I want to know this. How did you get the black eye? You had a black eye.
Oh, I got punched in the face. So that was
the black eye at Scribble Jam.
Yeah, so that was we were on the way to we were actually on the way to Scribble Jam, and we stopped to get gas, and we couldn't get our car through, and there were like 2 carloads full of dudes parked in front of our car, and I stuck my head out the window and I said, "Hey, get out of the way." And I didn't realize that there were like 10 people in both cars. I thought it was just 2 cars parked, and emerged just massive. I'm talking, and dude, huge ring on his middle finger. He's like, "What'd you just say, homie?" And I was like, "Oh shit, this isn't good." My window was down. I was wearing flip-flops too. I'm like, I can't fight in flip-flops. Boom! Cracked me right in my face. I deserved it. I was out of pocket.
He just walks around the side of the car and punches you through the window?
Wait, so he just said, "What'd you say, homie?" And pop! And I saw white. Like it was the thing where like I came to, and I'm like, I think I got knocked out for a couple seconds, and but then I had this massive black eye for the entire rap battle. And
see, those kind of experiences should teach you humility.
You would think so, right?
Not doing stuff like that. Like, like we used to always, when we were riding bikes, we used to like yell shit at cars a lot.
Yeah.
And then like the first time that like a dude hit a U-turn and came through and like tried to square up with us, it's kind of like a reality check.
Yeah,
like,
man.
oh, yeah. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. And you never know who's in the car that you're yelling at, too. I mean, this dude was huge and just this massive gold ring, and he caught me right here. And it was, I mean, it was over.
So, okay, when you drop out, you're just fully like in this world, like traveling and doing everything possible to try to make a name for yourself?
Bro, like we would go to cities, and if we could get on a show to perform there'd be 10 people in the crowd, no money. I'd hustle CDs hand to hand. That was at the time you could make a lot of money off of CDs. So if I could like call somebody and be like, hey, can I come to the local rap show you're doing with a fucking MC such and such, whoever, go get on stage, give me 10 minutes to perform, if that's cool. I'm a dude, I was just in Scribble Jam, or maybe even before that I was doing the, like, I just want to show up and rap. I would drive, you know, to Omaha, Nebraska, get on a rap show, open for some local dude, and then ask somebody on stage, can me and my friends sleep on your floor? We'll, you know, clean your house, or we'll give you free merch or whatever. And we toured like that, like lost money just showing up to venues in the Midwest. Maybe go to Boston, take a Greyhound bus out there and just try to get on whatever stage we could and rap, and then just pass CDs out. And we knew, or I knew, that there's a group, Atmosphere Rhymesayers from Minneapolis, and the way that they built their own massive multi-million-dollar label is literally just passing CDs out. And every single person you give a CD to, that's potentially a new fan. And this is before iTunes, any of that shit. So it was just following that business model.
Napster.
Yeah, bro. There was none of that shit. This is like people still listen to CDs and tapes. So you would give your music to somebody, and hopefully they'd listen to it and like it. And the next time you'd come through, you'd have a bigger crowd.
And were you like secretly like fantasizing about signing to like a Rhymesayers?
Well, I did. I ended up.
In what year?
2007.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So not only was I fantasizing about it, but I ended up figuring out a way to make it happen, and they put one of my records out.
Right.
So, and then I got to tour with them.